What if there was a faster way to hit solo blocks with your lottery miners? What's going on, crypto miners, and welcome back to the channel. In today's video, I'm going to show you how to set up your Canaan Avalon Nano 3 to solo mine Bitcoin Cash and then convert your rewards to Bitcoin. But why Bitcoin Cash and not Bitcoin? Wait till you see the difference in the odds. All right, huge shout out to the team over at Canaan for sending us the Canaan Avalon Nano 3 for today's video on solo mining. Let's go ahead and get this opened up here. Oh, it's white. Look, it's white, but it's got a black on the outside. That's a little deceiving here. So let's go ahead and pop this out. We'll take a closer look at some of the contents in here in just a minute. So we got to peel off that plastic there. Oh, the satisfaction, right? So we have a small little LED screen here, an informational screen. We'll take a look at that once we have this up and hashing. It does have the Canaan name right here in white engraved in there as well. We do have a front little mesh screen here, and there is actually some there as well for our intake side. And then on the flip side here, we actually have a whole nother side as well. And so one side, this side is actually the intake side. I can see there's a filter here. And then you have an exhaust side out the other side as well, which is pretty dang sweet. USB Type-C for our power. Other than that, nothing else too crazy. USB is available as well. I'm curious on what they're using that for. We'll have to take a look. Maybe there's a wireless dongle in there for that. I don't recall. And then on the bottom side here, we do have Canaan Avalon Nano 3S 28DC5A. Does have max power, or power consumption here, 140 watts. Our hash rate on high mode, 6 terahash, which is pretty dang slick. So, other than that, and moving this thing around quite a bit, let's see what we have in the box here. Do we have a power cable? Is there a USB dongle? What do we have available? Documents for wireless dongle. Oh, what do we have? Oh, look at this. That's pretty sweet for like resetting, like a little reset tool. That's definitely helpful, to say the least. Let's, oh, yep, there is. There is a USB dongle in here. So I think in the original Nano 3, not the Nano 3S, there was not, the wireless was actually built on board. I wonder what pushed them to put the USB separately in there. Let's open this up here. Yes, a power supply, which is great. Not all ASICs come with these, so I'm thrilled to see. Look at this one. This one's actually like clear. You can actually see some of the components inside. Our USB Type-C there. And I think this should be the other part of our power cable inside the box. Yep. There we go. Awesome. Love to see it, which is great. So the nice thing is there's not much actually to this unit overall. Not a lot of parts or anything like that. We just have our power cable as well as the USB dongle there. So let me go ahead. I want to get this plugged in, powered up, and then you actually use your cell phone to configure this. This device will give off an ad hoc wireless signal. And you actually just go ahead and on your phone, and I'll put a link right up on the screen here, you actually download from your app store, whether you're iOS or Android, you download the Avalon Family app, and that allows you to set up and configure this. All right, we've been up and hashing for a little while now. You can take a look at our screen here. It does give us lots of great information. The hash rate, as well as the current time, the IP address, the date, as well as the watts at the wall. Now, check that out. Looks pretty slick, huh? Even has that white light across the front there. Well, actually over here this is the Canaan Avalon Family app. Shows a few other units that I do have here on property. Here is our unit right here, and you can see we're at 6.3 terahash. And inside the app, it does give you the ability to turn off that light, to change the light color, all different types of options, fun for home miners. Now, looking at watts at the wall, we are coming in at 139 watts. So it's about a little under 10 watt difference between what we see at the wall and what we actually see on the miner. So with that all being said, let's go ahead and jump over to the computer and talk a little bit more about why I'm solo mining Bitcoin Cash. All right, here we are over on Canaan's website, and I'll show you a little bit more about this miner. If you go to the top, they now have a section called Avalon Home. And this is where they actually list out 3 different miners, the Nano 3S, as well as the Avalon Q. which isn't quite released yet, but it's a big boy miner. And then finally, the Mini 3. Let's take a closer look here at the Nano 3S. Jump over to their site. We'll scroll down, get past all of this here. Here's the miner. So Nano 3S, small heater that can generate Bitcoin is kind of what they push off of there. Now, here's all the details. 140 watts is advertised by the manufacturer. Our intake, our power button, our LED screen. There's that filter that I showed you guys earlier that we spoke about. And here is that app where you can manage the entire miner. Now, scrolling down a little bit farther, this miner goes for about $299, coming in at 6 terahash at 140 watts. So now let's talk a little bit more about mining with this. So I'll show you real quick here. I have mine set up on Via BTC. Via BTC's got a lot of the major cryptos out there. Bitcoin, Bitcoin Cash, LTC for Litecoin or Dogecoin, ETC, CKB I have running on there, Caspa, and Ethereum. We're going to talk a little bit more about Bitcoin Cash today. So over on their pool, actually, they make it very simple and easy. You just select your asset here after you've created an account, so Bitcoin Cash, and to swap it over to solo mining, you actually go to the top right to miner settings. And right here, mine's set to solo. So traditionally, it actually is PPS plus. So you can change it. And that's more for pool mining. You could swap it over to solo mining. So I've already done that. Now, my worker is up and running here. It's going to take quite some time to actually show up fully on the dashboard. As I said, it's only been up for a few minutes. So we'll give it a little bit of time to get up and running. But in the meantime, let's talk about this a little bit. So let's say you bought this unit, 6 terahash, 140 watts. Well, you spent $299. Let's go over to mining now. Look at ASIC miners. We're going to type in Nano 3, and there's a Nano 3 and Nano 3S. We're using the Nano 3S. The previous model was the Nano 3 at 4 terahash. So when we look at the Nano 3S, let's raise up our electric cost here to 15 cents, be a little bit on par with more of the average there. And you can see this unit's making about 35 cents a day in Bitcoin. So you spend 300 bucks, you only make 35 cents a day. But then you got to pay for your electric that this thing uses, which is 50 cents a day. So you're actually at a negative 14 cents, almost negative 15 cents a day in Bitcoin. So in reality, you're not really making anything after electric. So this unit is not designed, it's not advertised to be a, pool miner where you pay $3.99 or $2.99, sorry, and you earn Bitcoin per day. You could do that, but at a very, very small amount. And, you really need a decent electric cost and rate in order to do pretty well. But now let's talk about Bitcoin mining. Well, let's say you decided to solo Bitcoin mine with this unit. We talked about pool mining. Well, let's go over to the website sololuck.com. And we're going to change here terahash at the top. And we're going to put in 6 terahash. Now, what I want you to look at is, I'm not as concerned as much about the chances per day, but more on your chances per year. So chances per year, we have a 1 in 2,759 chance to hit a Bitcoin block using the 6 terahash miner, the Canaan Avalon Nano 3S. So not exactly the best. Now per day, it's like over 1 million, like holy cow. But you have to remember, if you do hit a Bitcoin block, it's worth 3.125 Bitcoin. So if you hit a Bitcoin block, which the chances are crazy high, but there's always a chance, right? Better than not at all. If we come down and take a look here, 3.125 Bitcoin, that's worth $327,000. There it is, $327,000, which is amazing. But as we talked about, our chances are quite high. And if you're someone who's like, hey, I'm just looking, I put in $299. I'm looking for maybe some more consistent payout opportunities, not necessarily, a few cents a day, but looking for something more of an opportunity. This is where Bitcoin Cash comes in. So if we go ahead and jump over to solochance.org and we scroll down, we're going to change this to Bitcoin Cash, and we're going to terahash and 6 terahash. The same miner on Bitcoin Cash versus Bitcoin. If we hit calculate here, your per day is 1 in 3,396. So almost the same as Bitcoin solo mining for a year, but in 1 day. But then take a look at 1 year. The 1 year for Bitcoin Cash is 1 in 9 chances, which is pretty dang good when you think about that. So, 1 in 9 with Bitcoin Cash. With Bitcoin, 1 in 2,759. Now, if you hit a block on Bitcoin Cash, what's that going to look like? So we're over here on CoinGecko. That's going to look like $1,282. So you have a much better chance, as we talked about, of hitting a block with Bitcoin Cash versus Bitcoin. However, some of you guys might be able to wait it out. You could run this miner forever and never actually hit a Bitcoin block. But let's say you do hit a Bitcoin Cash block and you get the payout, $1,200 and some dollars. What do you do with it now? Because the goal is really to get it over to Bitcoin, right? I hear you. So there's two ways you could go that I prefer. The first way is actually Trade Ogre. Now, regardless of how you feel about Trade Ogre, I've never had issues with Trade Ogre myself. I transfer funds over to Trade Ogre, I swap them, and I transfer them off. I never leave anything on Trade Ogre. So over on Trade Ogre's website, they do give you the option to swap Bitcoin Cash for Bitcoin very quickly, very easily without KYC involved. The other avenue is actually Tangem. If you actually have a Tangem wallet and you're mining directly to that wallet, which supports Bitcoin and Bitcoin Cash, you can go on there and there's a swap mechanic. They swap Bitcoin Cash to Bitcoin and bam, within a matter of minutes, it has been swapped over. So the end result of still getting to Bitcoin is still an option with solo mining Bitcoin Cash. Now, should you put all your solo Bitcoin lottery miners on Bitcoin Cash? Well, no. But if you have a few, it's a great way to diversify your solo mining and luck with a bit more consistent rewards. Listen, comment down below. Let me know your thoughts on solo mining Bitcoin Cash. If you've tried it already, I'd love to hear how it went for you. All right, guys, have a good one.